This guy has bad arguments, oh yeah. And my truth is this guy doesn't have good arguments. Converted man here. Hey, this apologist has bad arguments. What a not shocking surprise. He covers them. Apparently, he did a video prior to this where he goes over the broken cosmological argument that asserts the universe has a beginning. And then he's saying that atheist comments last time basically have 3 points. Whether or not these are the actual points the atheist made, I don't know. But anyways, Big Bang happened but wasn't the origin of the universe. The universe is infinite, or the law of causality is false. And he's like, well, that stuff's not true, or whatever. Or that we don't like causality because it proves us wrong. Oh, it's so funny. Anyways, I may or may not play this video. Let's just cover this whole thing. Okay, so here's an article that the Big Bang isn't the beginning of the universe. So you can read through that. Link in the description. And then there's a book that called The Battle of the Big Bang, and it's got different tales of cosmic origins. Different scientists talk about different cosmology because the Big Bang isn't the only idea out there for cosmology. There's a lot of ideas. It's just that's the most well-known, the most popular. But see, that doesn't make it as far as science goes, because you could disprove it. You could prove a different theory is better if you have evidence, something that we don't have in regards to Christianity or any religion for that matter. But what we do have are bad arguments. So, in regards to cosmology, I wrote on his video that my rebuttal for this whole video is just the Planck temperature. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm saying Planck. That's what I've been saying forever, so I'm going to keep saying it. Planck temperature. Okay, and this guy doesn't know what that is because, why bother learning science when you can just regurgitate what apologetic websites and videos have been regurgitating for years? Same old, same old. The universe has a beginning. No, slow down there, buddy. We don't know that. Oh, yes, it does, because Big Bang. Okay, so the universe is old, so we're already having to agree that the universe is billions of years because you're agreeing with science, right? You can't, change your mind later. So he can't be a young Earth creationist. He can't think that the universe is 6,000 years old, or the Earth is 6,000 years old, or 12,000, or any other stupid numbers. So you're granting biological evolution as well, then, right? Or are you just gonna cherry pick science? I don't know. But anyways, even if we absolutely had evidence that there was a beginning to the universe, that doesn't tell us anything about the cause, or even if there is a cause. Now, that's very weird to consider the idea that there might not be a cause, because we're very used to cause and effect. What you have to understand, though, is the state of reality doesn't really care what we like or are used to or understand. However reality works, that's how things work. So, the Planck temperature in this area, which is somewhat relying upon Big Bang cosmology to some degree, the universe is super mega hot. And it's so hot that atoms and particles cannot form. We can't do proper physics on that. And so we can't do logic on it. Honestly, we can't do it. We can do maybe some logic, but the problem is we don't have that. We're looking at a model of the universe here that's very different from the universe we're used to. We're used to a universe where there are atoms at least. And during the Planck temperature time period of the universe, however long that lasted, we don't even have atoms to look at. So constructing a logic around the observation of that universe is either impossible or extraordinarily difficult. I don't know. It's not been done as far as I know. I don't know. I couldn't do it. I don't even know where I'd begin, because it's like, how do I? Is the law of identity true? Kind of, I think. But is causality true? I don't know, because and then but logic is based on our observation of the universe. So cause and effect is sometimes wrapped in it's like a logical thing. It's or it's a pattern we notice in nature. However you want to look at that, cause and effect. We don't know. Everything that we understand that works now, if you went back in time, well, you couldn't. I mean, you couldn't survive. Well, let's just assume you have a time machine and somehow can survive this. I don't know, but you were there during the Planck temperature, and of course you're shielded from the heat. Otherwise, you'd vaporize into nothing. And you're trying to observe what's going on. There isn't anything going on, but also there is stuff going on. And is there cause and effect? I don't know. There's no way to know. That realm is so weird and wild and different. So the apologist makes the mistake of assuming, and it is an assumption, that the observed phenomenon of cause and effect is always true. That might not be the case. We're not saying that it is not the case. That's the straw man-ish approach that I'm sure he's going to do. We don't know is the answer. We don't know how that works. Answers in Stoicism has lobsters. Well then, oh my God, you have to then get all the points. You get all the points that this video was going to hand out to anybody else. Nobody else can get points. Robin, I'm sorry. Normally you would get some points, but Stoicism took all the points. So you can fight him for it. If you beat him, then you can have the points. All right. Playing with chat. Don't worry about it. Not that this guy's going to listen to my video. He doesn't care. Oops, I took his video down. Where did it go? Damn it. Okay.
Or something like that. I was a little bit confused. But atheists sort of don't seem to like the law of causality for this because, I don't know. I honestly think it just is because it proves them wrong.
No, the law of causality doesn't prove us wrong. That's just dumb. It doesn't prove you right. And this law of causality, is that really a law? Or are you just saying it's a law? What scientific peer-reviewed papers do you have that talk about causality? And in regards to Planck temperature, because there's this huge firewall of, I don't know, how do you know what we can't know? You don't. So I'm not saying that the causality stops at Planck temperatures. I'm not saying I'm saying, well, don't know what's going on anymore. We just don't. Sorry, that's how it is. Physics has stopped functioning the way that we understand it, and until somebody does math or something to figure all that out, we have a giant I don't know wall of fire. Wait, boobies. Oh, well, then Robin now gets all 1,000,000 points now. Now, I remember that I said that Stoicism got all the points. I lied. The boobies won, and because there's at least 2 points there, and that one, checkmate. Yeah, I'm sorry. All right. Getting distracted by lobsters and boobies in chat. Lobster boobies would be awesome, but then that would make them mammals, and then they wouldn't be. I'm not sure what they would be anymore. We wouldn't call them lobsters though. All right, I'm gonna look that up later. All right.
They don't want to admit that, but they basically say that it isn't real, I guess. So like I said,
Yeah, you guess. See, you're not really paying attention, right? That's my conclusion. I guess they're saying that. Why not ask them? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, how does that work? I don't understand it. I'm just going to make a follow-up where I kind of straw man their position. Good enough. Whatever.
that in this video, I'm going to respond to these 3 objections, and hopefully by the end, you can see why the theistic worldview, at least when it comes to the cosmological argument, is much more feasible than the atheistic worldview. So let's...
All right, and there's apologetic trope number, whatever it is. There isn't an atheist worldview. For the love of humanity, theist, apologist, stop doing this. I've had to correct you many times on this. Not you, this guy, but the apologist. I don't know how hard this is to wrap your head around. Theism, in and of itself, is not a worldview. Nor is atheism. Nor is Democrat or Republican. Because these things are not a big enough label to tell you a worldview. Naturalist, materialist, you're getting closer to a worldview there, perhaps. Christian, sure, worldview. Muslim, worldview, yes. Judaism, yes, worldview. Because they have all these things in them that are in what we call a worldview. So they tell you origin, they tell you meaning and purpose and goals, and what about death? It is a way to view the entire world and everything that goes in that. Human focused, of course, leaving other creatures to the side because we're human and we might care about other creatures, but we care about ourselves, first and foremost. So yeah, that's that.
Respond to the first objection that these atheists make, which of course is that the Big Bang happened, but it isn't the origin of the universe. Now, if the Big Bang happened, but it wasn't what caused time, space, and matter to be set into motion or to just exist, we've got a dilemma on our hands. If you believe in the Big Bang, then you have to believe that everything, time, space, and matter, began to exist. In other words, if you believe that the Big Bang did happen, but don't believe it was the origin of the universe, that's not the Big Bang. Now, the second...
Well, it's much more complicated than that. Because, well, first of all, I'd object to the term belief. I don't believe the Big Bang. I agree with the scientists, not them, but I should say, I agree with the scientific methodology. And this is a cosmological model, but it's not the only one. And although it has support for it, that doesn't mean it is the end-all be-all of science. So I don't say that the Big Bang is the one. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a cosmologist. So I'm comfortable in allowing science to figure that out. So I'm not for or against the Big Bang. I agree that it seems reasonable given the data we have. It seems plausible, but there are certainly mysteries to be fulfilled to be filled that we don't know. And I'm happy with the mystery, and maybe we'll figure it out. Maybe we won't. Begin to exist, Brian. It's an old chestnut. Too bad it's rotten to the core. Yeah. So we'll get to begin to exist. You don't have to believe in the Big Bang. So that's setting that aside. You agree with it. Well, time, space, all that came to start. Well, this is hard because the general bog standard response on Google for the lazy person is that Google will bring up websites that say that the Big Bang is the beginning of the universe. So it's super easy to be like, well, that's the answer. But if you want to dig further and actually read some scientific papers or listen to scientists that talk about this, you'll find that even though they agree with the Big Bang, they don't say that it's the beginning of the universe in the way that and so it's like, well, why are they saying this here but not here? I don't know. I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know. So you're not a cosmologist. Okay, so what do you do? Well, if you don't want to look at the scientific peer-reviewed papers because they're hard to get, they're hard to read. If you do get past firewalls, and there's ways around that are legal. I hope they're legal. I have a lot of websites for people if you want to like do searches. I have a whole giant list of different weird search engines to use. Not weird, but specific search engines. And Google Scholar also can work as well. And to bring it up, but with the caveat of you got to be careful with this damn thing, ChatGPT. We can use that and say, hey, is the beginning of the universe in the Big Bang? Is that what scientists really say? And it will kind of say sort of maybe, depending on how it feels that day. So you can't really trust it. But that's kind of like the lazy man approach, right? But apologetics doesn't do that. They don't look at the science. They don't do the hard work. They don't do any of that. They don't rely on the science at all or the scientific method. Apologetics relies upon the argument, and that's it. It relies upon intuitive thinking. It relies upon cause and effect always functioning. It also relies upon some clever wordplay and usage of language that, if you cared about informal logic, you would not use. So the bog standard cosmological argument, the Kalam, I'm not sure if he's using that one, but things that begin to exist have a cause, ... universe began to exist, ... therefore universe has a cause. I don't know why I'm adding ... but no, because what do you mean things begin to exist? What does that mean? I asked somebody that in comments, and they said, well, like a paperclip, it began to exist the moment it's a paperclip. So it's not, that wasn't even an answer. And I'm like, all right, yeah, so it began to exist the moment it was an actual, like the mold was cooled down after pouring into a paperclip shape. So once that occurred, then it was a paperclip. It wasn't beginning to exist as you were pouring the metal or as it was cooling down. It had to get to the point where it was a solid form in the shape of a paperclip, and that's when it began to exist. Okay, cool. And I'm like, all right, so how does that work for the universe? Because, like, what is it made out of? Because this is the compositional fallacy, the parts and the whole. So you could say, that's when the paperclip began to exist. Cool. So what is the universe exactly? So, anyways, what's he got to say here?
Second big point that a lot of these atheists were coming to the table with was that the universe is infinite, that there was no starting point, that it's always existed. And to these atheists, I simply ask 3 questions. First off, why do you think the universe is expanding then? Second off, do you think Einstein just simply got this wrong?
Well, okay, so this all depends on what the hell the word universe means. And this is extraordinarily tricky. And it's important to know what the hell we're meaning by the word universe, because that's everything. Well, but also, is it everything? Like what? And so it's Gotta use MS Paint here, good old MS Paint to help out here. So let's do that. So we got the universe, it's kind of cool. And here's the thing. This is not this is a way to picture it, but that's not obviously it's not the universe, but we're going to pretend like this is the universe, right? Okay, so the question to ask then is, what's this out here, right? What is that? We don't have a name for this, right? We have a name for this. We don't have a name for that. So theists will say outside. And that's well, what is that? That's saying that the universe has sides, which the way I drew it, it does, but that's not what it looks like. What does it look like? All these, so space doesn't look like anything. It's just empty area. And, so space is kind of mathematically represented by up, down, left, right, forward, backwards, whatever. So there's space. So there's a where to do stuff. And then there's also time, which is a when to do stuff. And we call all that the universe. And as far as there being an outside, has no name, has no proof to it. It has we anything that we would say about it would be speculation. So when you have the universe being this small tiny dot, and you're like, okay, well maybe it just was that dot for ever, or a really long, basically forever. Here's the thing: if you don't have time, then there is no when. And so not having time messes with us because we're so used to time. So when we don't have time, we don't have a when. There's no when. It just is. It just is. There's nothing happening because there's no moment A to B to C. It's just there always. And this is close to what theists would call eternity, which is, this is my symbol for eternity, is it. Well, let me draw it a little bit better, because I like to try to draw it better. And you'll know, by the way, if you bought my book, you'll see that symbol on my book, Compete with an Infinite Hope, Finite Despair. That's my symbol for eternity. Patent pending. Let's go ahead and trademark it, just to make sure. But anyways, so eternity is forever. It's always been, it always will be. Well, when you don't have time, that's what you're looking at, is just always. And then when time starts, which maybe it did, I guess, when space starts, it can't start unless there's time. And so that, because time and space are linked, and maybe they're the same damn thing, then you have a universe. So then you're like, well, that's the start of the universe. And it's like, well, no, because the universe it was always there. It just, well, that's when it started to do stuff that it hadn't been doing until that point. And you're like, aha, so there's a beginning. And it's like, well, can we call it that? Can we really call it a beginning? I don't know that word applies. Maybe it does. This isn't simple. This isn't like we can just say things about it, because it's complicated. It's nuanced. And the skeptic is wanting to be precise about this weird area that we don't know that much about. Scientists have tried to figure it out. They're doing the mathematical stuff on it. They're observing the data with the telescopes and satellites and whatever else we do. They're smashing particles together to see what happens. They're doing all sorts of stuff to try to figure out. But the theists, I got an argument. I don't need any of that stuff. I got an argument. See, we know stuff comes from other stuff. See? Yeah, that works all the time here on Earth. Yeah, sure. So let's just go all the way back, and yeah, the beginning of the universe, yeah, it's still cause and effect all the way back, and it can't be infinite because I mean it wasn't always there, and but then we have God. See, and then God was always there. Wait a minute, wait, why can God always be there, but the universe can't always be there? Well, because it's God and it doesn't obey the rules of everything else, right? Because, reasons,
We go back to Einstein. First off, he was one of the most intelligent human beings that existed on planet Earth.
I mean, that's a huge assumption. I don't know. Hawkins was pretty smart. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. He could still be wrong.
Second off, he didn't want to discover this. He was not a theist. I think he ended up becoming.
Yeah. They always say he didn't want to discover this or whatever. Like, I don't know where this comes from, this idea that he didn't want to find out or didn't. Like, where's that coming from? But who cares?
A pantheist, because he couldn't deny that the universe had a beginning and that the beginning points to a God. And
No. Where does Einstein ever say that? The beginning of the universe points to God. Does Einstein ever say that? No, that's an assumption you're making on your part. No, beginning of the universe doesn't point to God at all, even if we knew there was a beginning of the universe, which we don't, thanks to Planck temperature. It's just the only rebuttal I need for this whole video is just Planck temperature, bro. Go look it up. Go learn it. Go study it. Have you studied cosmology? No. Have you written any peer-reviewed papers on it? No. Well, why the hell are you talking about cosmology? You're just some dude that's doing basic bog standard philosophy like we've seen a million times. You're not bringing anything new to the table. We don't know that the universe does the things that you think that it does. But even if we did, that doesn't mean God did it, because we still don't have proof or evidence or any test for God. And that's the problem. Beginning of the universe proves God. How? How does that prove God? Well, because. All right, yeah.
My third question is, do you believe in the law of causality? Which.
Nope, don't have a belief. The law of causality applies to our current space-time localized phenomenon, perhaps, with the caveat, by the way, of quantum physics. Quantum physics, where it's like cause and effect. Quantum physics is flipping us the bird, being like, yeah, figure out where I am, sucker. Yeah, well, we don't, so no. So I don't have a belief at all. I go with what the data says. And the data says sort of, mostly, but also kind of maybe no. And also then if we're talking about the beginning of the universe, beginning, quote unquote, Planck temperature, we really don't know. So yeah, no, I don't. It is a localized phenomenon. There you go. And I don't need to believe in it because the data is there.
I think we all do, even if we don't admit it. And of course, we're going to get to the law of causality in a minute here. But even if none of those questions really applied here, here's how I would respond further. There's lots of logical reasons why the universe can't be infinite, but I think one of the most compelling and interesting is the fact that we are here in time right now. An infinite number of days and time in general implies that there's a lack of forward movement in time.
No, it does not.
You think of kind of where we're at right now in relation to time, it's like somebody started the clock, and as time has moved forward, we've gotten to where we are now. If time was infinite, then there would be no point that the clock had started. And
right. So you're saying that you cannot have an eternity, so your God can't exist. Call.
Therefore, we wouldn't be here. Let me further elaborate on this. Every single morning that you and I wake up, there is a day added to the proverbial timeline. If there are days and hours and minutes constantly being added to our timeline, that implies that the universe could not be infinite. In other words, it would be taking infinity and trying to add 25 or something to infinity.
Okay, so you don't understand infinity. That's okay. Infinity's weird. Not the first time this is a little bit better than when I've heard it before, but it's still not very good. Now, I'm not going to say that I understand infinity, completely either, but I think that, I think I kind of have a handle on it, possibly, maybe. We'll see. You can tell me if I'm wrong, I suppose. So what the hell is infinity? It's a concept, yeah. Is it real? It's a real concept. All right, so we have infinite. All right. So the best we can do is kind of like be abstract with it. Well, let's start with 0, shall we? And then -1, -2, -3, etc. And then 1, 2, 3, etc. Right? And it goes on forever, right? It goes on forever. So what he is saying is, if you had it infinite this way, right, then how do you ever get to here? Because you're always infinitely that way. Well, if you're moving forward, and you are here somewhere, wherever that is, doesn't matter. Let's put you at -9 billion, because although you're at an infinite spot in the past, you're still moving forward through infinity. So the infinity, if you will, is getting larger. So the way to conceptualize it is to number infinity, whether that makes sense to you or not, but that's the only way we can conceive it. So we're at negative, over 9,000, I don't know, negative 9,999, whatever. But that's actually infinity, okay? And but we're moving this way. And so now you're at negative 9,998 infinity. And this is just conceptual. It's not actual. And that's another thing that we have to remember. It's like, this isn't really real. Okay, it's all conceptual. And eventually, you will get here, wherever that is. And this is where things get interesting, because all of a sudden, universe and we get really happy about that, because now there's a thing here, whereas before that, we weren't even there to know that there wasn't a there. So as long as you're moving forward, it doesn't matter how much infinity you have. Another way to think about this, and this is the what is the name of the paradox now? I can't think of it right now, but basically the idea is that if you take a step, first you have to take half a step, and then in order to take half a step, you have to take half a step, and so on and so forth. So basically, you can never move forward, because there's an infinite amount between your leg and your other foot, and so you can't move forward, because there's infinity in your way. There's an infinite amount of numbers in between this, so you can't move forward. Right? Or you also can't move backwards, because there's an infinite amount of numbers in between every step you take, every move you make, every bond you break. And no matter if I'm watching you or not, that's just how that be. So how is it we cross infinity every single day? Because it's a concept. So it's somewhat illusionary in that sense. So yeah, the universe can be infinite as much as it wants. If you say no, it can't be, cool, that's nice. I hope you keep that rule for your God then too. Because if you want to establish that it's a rule that something can't be forever, then God can't be forever. So you got to decide, can the universe be forever? If not, Okay, so nothing is allowed to be forever. And you cannot make a special exception for God. If God's allowed to be forever, then anything is allowed to be forever, including the universe. And as Carl Sagan said, why not save a step? And instead of positing God, just go with the universe always was. Oh, well, that would really ruin his argument. So, doesn't want to do that.
Infinity. That defeats the whole purpose of infinity. And yet we continue to move forward and be able to look back at where we were yesterday and so on and so forth. To dumb it down a little bit, we wouldn't be able to be here and progress forward if the universe and time existing in the universe had always existed forever.
And again, I already showed that that's not true. Forward momentum negates that. But entropy is a thing. We're in a constant... Yes, it's confusing arbitrary symbols with distance. Yes, exactly. Infinity is very weird and wacky. There's a distance. How many inches are in a foot? And then how many millinches, and keep going. You keep going down. There's an infinite numbers there. So you're going infinity every time you move. It's that's weird, but that's how it be. Anyways, what did he say? Something stupid. I missed it.
If the universe and time existing in the universe had always existed forever.
Oh, okay, yeah. He doesn't understand the concept. The concept infinity is weird. Like I said, it's weird and wacky. It's just that though. It's not really it's kind of a thing, but it's also not really a thing. But he's wanting it to be set up in a way where it can't work even though it works. And whether it makes sense or not doesn't matter, by the way. But, of course, proving infinity is also kind of impossible. That's a whole nother problem. But imagine you're in space, you're in a rocket ship, and you find a wall. As far as the eye can see going to the left, there's a wall. As far as the eye can see going to the right, there's a wall. Well, you could say it's infinite, but you might be wrong. You could travel along as long as you can. It's like, well, I think it's infinite, But yeah, he thinks infinity prevents time or whatever. I don't know. But it's typical no to infinity. The theist says no, infinity doesn't work in our universe. But infinity is perfectly fine for God. God can exist for infinity because he always existed. Okay, but God always existed. So how did he catch up to now? Well, he didn't have time to worry about. Okay, so he's no when. But also, if you don't have time to worry about, and the universe doesn't have time to worry about, then the universe is in the same state that God is. It's just always there. Whatever the universe is, whether it is or isn't. Whether it's that tiny singularity or, I don't know. So, yeah, okay.
It doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. Now, before
it doesn't make sense. Well, then there you go. It just doesn't make sense. So it's got to be wrong when it doesn't make sense, right? We all know that. Oh, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Can't be true then. Oh, okay. Well, you know what that's called? It's called an appeal to ignorance. So.
we move on to the rest of the video, I want to encourage you to comment down below. If you're a Christian and maybe you're gaining something out of this, be sure to like the video and comment your thoughts. If you're learning something new, or maybe you just agree with me, let me know down in the comments. Like I said,
I go for the other way. I'm like, hey, look, if you disagree with me, let me know. You agreeing with me, look, tell me I'm wrong. Explain infinity better than I did in the comments, please. Explain space-time or cosmology better than I did. Give a logical argument. Disagree with me, please, because I learn new stuff, and I enjoy that. And I love chat, I do, but the comments, of course, hit YouTube's touchy-feelies and then make me more available to other people. So it helps out. So I know this is a live stream and I know you're in chat, but after it's done, just reload it and put a comment, whatever it is, disagree, agree, I don't know, whatever you want to say. Even if it's just, hi, helps out. Anyways.
In the last video, I want to know that I'm doing something right, so I'd love to hear that from you as a fellow Christian. And if you're an atheist, on the other hand, and you have objections to bring, let's talk about them. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, well, my brother's a theist, and he'd probably direct you to his book Unapologetic and tell you to read it, because you're doing the apologetic stuff and he's against that. So, he'd just tell you read his book, and I'd be like, yeah, go get his book and read his book. For me, but he would also disagree with you. He's like, we don't know this is true. And even if we knew it was absolutely true that there's a beginning, etc., whatever, that doesn't mean God anything, because you still haven't proven that God's a thing.
What you have to say as well. And once again, if you want to know the information that I'm telling you and see where it comes from, and also get a much more in-depth study on these concepts, check out this book right here. It's called I Don't Know How to Be a It's called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Dr. Frank Turek and Dr.
Okay, I guess that's it. We don't need to watch anymore. No, I mean, like, seriously, I'm done. I'm not even joking. Like, Frank Turek, that fraud, that's what you're getting your information from? Wow. So that's why this is such a bad video. So all his ideas are coming from a crap guy that doesn't understand anything, that's just making money on people's stupidity. Frank is wrong on everything he says about everything. On multiple levels, scientifically, logically, etc. He's just a con artist. That's your resource. We're done. You don't have anything. That's not how you learn anything, by the way. Don't get one dude's book and read it and think, oh, I know everything now, because, no. Well, there's lots of books. Get them and read them. By the way, you don't have to buy that. You can get it at the library. But no, don't waste your time on Frank Turek. And honestly, we're done. I don't see any reason to keep going with this video. I really don't. Frank Turek. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Your citation is you might as well have quoted Ron Hubbard for all Ron Hewitt or whatever the hell that guy's name is. Yeah, so all right, yeah, later's. I know. Maybe you're disappointed. Come on, Deconverter Man, do more. I'll tell you what. Yeah, I if I get 5 different comments from 5 different people, I'll do part 2. But I'm just done. I don't know. Ron Hubbard, whatever, that guy, not that guy, whatever, the colossal fraud dude, what's his face? Ron Wyatt, that's the guy I was thinking of. God, all right. So, hopefully this was entertaining and thoughtful and made you think in a different way. Brian seems to kind of like the idea of infinity I was talking about. It's like, wait, how does that work? It's like, yeah, that's a good question. Like, I don't know that I'm explaining it that well. So that's a conversation to be had. Maybe we could set up a talk and do that on or off air if you want. And until next time, stay skeptical and be skeptical and, post your comments later. If I get 5, I'll do part 2. All right. See ya.